Hello. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we will look at how borrows work and how mutable borrows or immutable borrows work, as well as we will see something about more on borrowing actually. So the first function which we have is called eat box I32. It receives a box I32 value. So note that there is no ampersand here, so the value will be moved to this function, and once it goes out of scope, that value will no longer be accessible. The borrow I32 function receives the value by reference, so that is, it borrows, while this does not borrow, it moves. For this function, it will be a move. For this function, it will be a borrow. We create a box I32 variable, which creates a box integer 5 on heap, and then stack I32 creates a value 6 of the same type I32 on stack. So first we borrow both the box I32 and stacked I32, so there is no problem. Then we have a block. In that block, what we do, we create a ref to I32 and we borrow that, take a reference of the box I32. Now we pass it to borrow I32 and it will print that. And eventually we call eat box I32 on box I32. So this will work. But suppose we uncomment this line. Okay. So what happens is the box I32, because the inner value is referenced here, you can't do that. Okay, it will be a compilation error because the inner value is borrowed later in scope. So this value is being used here. So you can't destroy box I32. Okay, let's see this in action. So we try to compile this. First see borrow box, and we have got the problem here, that value after the move. So here box 32 will be moved, but we are still using it, so it is not allowed. Okay, so we need to comment out this line and then the program will compile and you can actually run this. So first it prints both 5 and 6, and then it prints the 5. Box 32 is 5, then it prints 5, and eventually it destroys that box. So that's how the borrowing works. Now we look at mutable borrows and borrows. So we have a structure called book, whose author is a static string and title is also a static string. Sorry, string slice actually. It is not a string, it is a slice. And we have here as U32. Then there is a function called borrow, which takes a book by reference. And this borrow is immutable borrow and it prints the edition title and year. Then we have a new edition which borrows, but it takes a mutable reference and changes the year and then prints the same message, that is immutable borrow. So in the function, we create an immutable book. We give the author name and the title and the year. So first we create a mutable copy, okay, and we call it mutabook. And we borrow the immutable book, which is fine. We immutably borrow an immutable object. Then we borrow the mutable book. So we immutably borrow a mutable book. And finally, in the new edition call, we take the mutable reference of mutable book. But if you try to take a reference of mutable reference of immutable variable, it won't work. And you will see the problem here as we compile it. So rust C mutability .rs, and there you go. Cannot borrow as mutable. Okay. So taking mutable references of immutable variables is not allowed. So we need to comment this out and we compile again, and our compilation should work. So it immutably borrows the 1979 edition twice, and then it once more mutably borrows the 2014 edition. So that was it. Now consider this program. We have a structured point which has three coordinates, x, y, and z, and we create a mutable point where x, y, z are 0. Then we take two references of this point. One is borrowed point, another is another borrow. Now we can access this through borrowed point or another borrow or the point. It will work. Okay, but you cannot borrow point as mutable because it is currently borrowed as immutable. If you do this, it won't work. Okay, because when you take mutable reference, there should be only one reference of this. Okay, then we print the coordinates here again, the references which we have taken. So it is essentially a repeat of this, so it does not matter. Then we take a mutable reference because after this, there is no usage of the references. So we can take a mutable reference. Here we can't take mutable reference because of this line, okay? But once the references, that is borrowed point and another borrow point have been used, we can take a mutable reference of the point. Once we take mutable reference, we can change the values, okay? But now if we want to take another reference, it won't work because it is mutably borrowed here. All right. Now the print ln also will not work because of the fact that it is mutably borrowed. So point dot get won't work. But if you use the mutable borrow here to print, it will work. You can't use the original references to print here after you have mutably borrowed. So if the mutable reference is no longer used, we can take a new borrow again and it will work. So new borrow point will work. So let's run this. C aliasing.rs dot cs aliasing. So the key point here is that there can be only one mutable borrow, and once you take a mutable borrow, that original value should not have any other references being used. Okay. And the second is that once mutable borrow is not used, you can take as many references as you want and it will work. Okay. So that those are the key points which we have studied in this video. One is that here that you have to be careful where values are being moved and where they are going by reference. So by reference is usually safe. In Rust, usually you want to borrow values as much as you can by reference, whether mutable or immutable. Immutable references, you can take as many as you want, but mutable, there has to be only one. So in general, this helps with preventing data races because there is only one, the rule is that there can be only one reference, mutable reference. So this helps a lot in what you call multi-threaded programming, where you will be passing the references left and right. So since only one thread can have mutable reference of the variable or any value, that thread can modify that variable, and that helps a lot with data races. At any point of time, no more than one thread is allowed to have the mutable reference, and only that thread should be allowed to change the value of the variable. And there are other techniques also. There is ref counting and there is a arc variable. So we will see those as we proceed. And the second thing is that you can't take mutable reference of immutable variable. You will have to first create a mutable copy of the immutable variable, and only then you can make a mutable reference. And the third point is you have to be careful about references because if you mess it, then it won't work. So with this, I will end this video and I hope that you have found this useful. In the next video, we will possibly see lifetime and how lifetimes work in Rust. So lifetimes are another essential topic of Rust programming. You will see why they are needed and how we can use those. So I will end this video here and I hope that you have enjoyed this video and found it useful. Also, you're finding the entire playlist useful. If you're not seeing the playlist and you want to learn more about Rust, you can watch the playlist in order to gain more knowledge about Rust. So I will end this video here. Thanks a lot for watching the video and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, keep programming. Thank you.